So hello and welcome back, folks. This week we have a big news. Bootstrap version 5 is out. After 3 beta releases, after 3 alpha releases, after several months of Bootstrap team's hard work, we are finally out with a new stable release. And thank you for waiting, Anshit. Before we begin, this live stream was scheduled at 9 p.m. EDT, but we got late by 30 minutes. So sorry for the delay for those who were waiting. And Anshit was waiting for us, so thanks and kudos to him. Now, in Bootstrap 5, we have a lot of new features. We have a lot of new changes. There are a few breaking changes as well, but we'll go through them one by one. And this video is supposed to basically introduce you to all the new things, to all the new features of Bootstrap 5. Let's see what they are. I'll go full screen so that you can read better, and I'll remove myself. Or probably this view is better. You can still see me, I guess. So we have some quick mentions. Well, jQuery is removed, so that's a big change. It won't impact you, but behind the scenes, Bootstrap was using jQuery, at least until Bootstrap version 4. But in 5, they have completely removed it. They have completely overhauled a lot of things. And if I go back, if you can see, they have even changed their icon. So they have really overhauled their icon, their branding, their code, their components, and their documentation. Saurabh is saying it's okay. At least you guys showed up. Yes, we always do show up because we have a lot to cover. Actually, we have so many topics to choose from. Every week there are like 10 to 20 releases. There are 10 to 20 new things that come out, and we just have to choose which one to go through. But definitely we have to be live every Wednesday. That's the rule. Anyways, moving forward, they have new icons. Not only the Bootstrap branding icon has changed, but Bootstrap has its own very nice, I would say it has a lot of new icons, and you really don't need to use Font Awesome or any other library anymore. So inside Bootstrap, you can use a lot of icons that they provide. And they are SVG for anyone who was interested. Also, they have a new breakpoint. So if you have been using Bootstrap before, you would know that they have the extra small, medium, large, and extra large, but now they also have extra large, XXL. It's basically to render for big screens or projectors or monitors, etc. We also have gutters now. Now, gutter is basically a gap. It's a gap between rows or gap between columns, and it has a lot of utility. And we will see that by the time we go to, I guess, forms. In forms, I've covered gutters. Now, left to right has been changed to start and end. And there's a big reason behind it. Can anyone guess what's the reason behind that? I'll give you some time why Bootstrap would change left and right to start and end. I will cover that a few minutes later. If anyone wants to guess it in the live stream, in the chat below. Now, we have a new component called Offcanvas. Now, Offcanvas is essentially a sidebar, but you can be creative with it. You can use it in a lot of different areas and a lot of different features. For example, you can use it. It can be toggled to appear from left to right, from left, right, bottom, or the edge of the viewport. Now, we won't just go through the boring presentation here. We will see the code, and let's dive right into it. So this is essentially a canvas. I'll go full screen just to show you the view. And you can toggle it with the help of a button or an anchor tag. So let's say I click here. It will come from the side because it's kind of a sidebar. It can also be toggled from the right-hand side, and the same thing for up the top and the bottom of the screen. Now, the first question that comes to our mind is, why and how can we use it? Now, this is the code. I'll zoom in, and I'll probably remove myself from the stream now so that you can get a better view of the code. So as you can see, this is a basic starter template that Bootstrap provides. The documentation link is down below if anyone is interested, if anyone wants to code with me. And these are basic buttons. It basically tells what it's going to toggle. It's going to toggle an off canvas, and that's just the text of the button. But here is the core logic. Here is the meat. So we have the off canvas. We have the off canvas start. And in the next one, we have off canvas end. Now you see, they are no longer using off canvas left or right. They're using start and end. Again, we come to the same point. Why did they change from left to right to start and end? Well, I can tell you the reason now. The reason is because they also introduced right to left support for languages. For example, Arabic, Urdu, and Farsi. There are many languages who are written from right to left, who are read from right to left. So Bootstrap, being the great community, the great people they are, they basically gave us support for writing start and end. Because now, if you are supporting a Farsi or an Arabic language, which is from right to left, we no longer have to write if and else cases, because otherwise we'll say sidebar should come from the left, but if the language is this, it should come from right to left or left to right, vice versa. So it will create a lot of duplication, a lot of conditions in our code. So they basically say, well, you need to write start and end. When it's RTL, we will start from the right. When it's regular language like English or Hindi or any other language that is read from left to right, we will automatically start from left. So they take care of all of that in the background, creating our jobs much easier. Now, this is off canvas end, off canvas start. Now, they also have top and bottom, but they essentially do the same thing. Obviously, you can use it for many different purposes. For example, the left one looks good for a sidebar. So I think it's definitely useful for a sidebar, but the right one, I think this is more useful when you have a shopping website and you have a cart. The top bottom can be used in different areas based on your website and your product. Moving on, we have Accordion. Now, Accordion is basically a vertically collapsing accordion. Now, what it is behind the scenes, it uses simple collapse. Collapse is a Bootstrap component, and it was there before in the previous release as well. So it basically allows us to collapse any component, any view. We can use collapse component to basically collapse it or expand it. Now, Accordion is basically a bunch of cards, a bunch of components that we can collapse with respect to each other. So basically, let me show you an example to understand it better. So we have something like this. We have accordion item 1, 2, and 3. So you see it has great animation. It is easy to understand what's happening behind the scenes. It has all the icons on the left. It has the highlight of the one that's open. And if I refresh the page, the first one is open by default. And this is very useful. I really like that because, well, why not? Why should the user go and click somewhere and to open something? If you have 5 things, you should at least open or expand one. But based on our website, obviously this can change. This depends on use case to use case. But I personally prefer the first one being open. That is my preference. It depends on your website though. Now let's see how this is made and how they're actually linked to each other. Because when we open one, obviously this has great utility classes. They have a lot of JavaScript and utility classes behind it. So we can even allow all of them to expand. Right now, whenever one expands, the other one collapses, but this doesn't have to be like this. This is just default behavior. We can override this default behavior to maybe be able to expand 5 or maybe all of them. But let's go to the code just to understand what's happening. So this is where our accordion starts. This is now in here we have 3 accordion items. Number 1, number 2, and number 3. Now, what we basically want over here is that when we go inside any one of them, this is the header. The accordion header is very important because this is something you will see even if it is collapsed. So if I go back to the website, you will see that if all of them are collapsed, you still see some text. Accordion item 1, number 2, number 3. So this is the header. So inside the accordion item, the first thing comes the header class, which we have to assign accordion header. And then we have to basically write anything inside the button, or it can be an anchor tag if you want. It depends, again, on your website. But apart from that, this is the main logic. This is the main meat, again, because this div is the accordion collapse div. This div basically will be visible whenever we expand our accordion and will be invisible whenever we collapse it. Now, as you can see, this utility class show is here in the classes for this div. Now, can you guess what it does? Well, if you go to the second one, you see it is no longer here. It doesn't say show. Now, what's happening behind the scenes? If you take a guess, you would be able to know that because when I refresh, the first one is open by default. So it has something to do with it. Let's experiment with that. I'll go to the first one. I'll remove the show, right? Just minimize this because it is too zoomed in for me. Maybe I'll zoom in more for you guys so that you can see it properly. I'll go to the second one and I will just write, oh, show. Let's see what happens. If I refresh now, you see the second one is expanded by default and not the first one anymore. So show is a very important, very useful utility class, which we can define which accordion should be open by default. And maybe you can store this in your route. So for example, if user was reading card number 3 out of 100, well, you don't want, if the user refreshes, you don't want that to be lost. So maybe you can even save that in your route just to provide a better user experience. I would do that. It's totally up to you. Now, the next thing is forms. Now, this is something I'm really excited about. They have completely overhauled the form components. They have changed the documentation. They have changed the look. They have changed the feel. They have removed the jQuery behind them. They have rewritten essentially everything from documentation to the code. They have made forms better than ever. We have custom form controls now, which were not there before in the previous releases. We have checks, radios, switches, files, and much more. So basically, these forms were essentially used the default version that our browser provides. They were essentially used before. So if you were opening a Bootstrap website in Chrome, it might look different than if you open it in Safari or Mozilla Firefox. So now they have custom form controls. They will look same across all. And DevOps directive is here and he's saying never. He's Sid. If you don't know about this channel, you have to check it out. It's amazing. And he says that never seen someone so excited about forms. Well, yes. I spend about 50 to 60% of my time doing front end development, and I would say forms are really, really very important. They are the life of any website. And so going back to the forms HTML, I'll actually just show you a demo, and just to check out what things we have. So first of all, we have the default checkbox, and the default checkbox is basically, as you can see, it's a simple checkbox, but the behind the scenes is that they have really changed the looks. If you have been using Bootstrap 3 or 4 before, you would be able to appreciate the difference behind them. We have the radio, we have the sliding switch checkbox button, we have the new file import, and much more. But let's see something else over here. My favorite out of all of these is the floating label. The floating label is really something awesome. I have been using Angular, and I use Angular material. And whenever I say I've been using Angular, I get a lot of hate online, but it's fine. Thousands of developers that use Angular, and it's something that we use at the company I work for, and I love it. So if you don't like it, well, it's fine. Let's leave it that way. So as you can see, if I go here, if I click here, you would see it has a floating label. So now I can write anything, and if I go to the password, it works perfectly. Now, before we had something like this. The labels either disappeared or it was on a different line, but now we have floating labels, so it really looks awesome. To me, it saves space, it's a better user experience, and it also looks good. So why not use it? So Bootstrap finally introduced floating labels, and all you have to do is you have to put a class called form floating outside your input box. So you just have to do that, and you will be able to use the awesome floating labels. Now, not only that, they have also changed the form grid. So it was very difficult before to be able to align the form components, the input boxes in one line. Now it's easier than ever. For example, if you see over here, I'm able to easily put them side by side, and let's just check out the code, how we are doing that. So we have a row, we have a form floating. As you can see, one of them is a floating component and the other one is not. Well, we can quickly add that as well. So what you need to do is you just need to do form floating, and those who don't know, you can write like this, and then if you press tab, it will automatically create a div for you with the class. And all you need to do is you need to just paste your input box in it. Let's see how it looks now. Obviously, the call should be outside. So I'll just make that quick correction. Okay, take two. Okay, so we have our two floating labels input boxes, but here we don't have a label, so that's obviously missing. So what I'll do is I'll just say, I'll actually copy from here. So below the input box, inside the floating label div, you can just add a label. You can name it maybe L name for last name, and just give this one an ID of L name, so last name. This should work. And just name it last name. Now that easily we have two forms, form inputs basically side by side, and they work perfectly. And before, in the previous releases, it was difficult, and not only in Bootstrap, it is a challenging thing whenever we have forms and we want vertical aligning, it was always difficult. And now they have overhauled it. We can use regular columns and rows inside the form, which was not possible to do this efficiently before. So this is really great. And you can also use the gutters that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. Obviously, you can know more by going to the link in the description below to know more about gutters and how they work. But they're essentially gaps that you can add between your rows, your columns, anything else. And the last thing is, which is really great, is the right to left layout. And I know, kudos to the Bootstrap team, I know this cannot be easy. I know this was the feature that they must have spent most of their time on. So now we have right to left layout. This works great with Arabic and Farsi and other right to left languages. And they have renamed a handful of direction classes to adopt the logical properties approach. So basically what that means is, you used to use ML3 for margin left. Now you should use MS3, because left to right is no longer an assumption. If you want a margin at the start of your component or your web page, anything, you need to use MS, which stands for margin start. So essentially, when you convert your website to a right to left reading language, it would automatically change. You don't have to write ML3 if English and MR3 if Arabic. You don't have to do those things. Bootstrap will do those things for you behind the scenes. So this is really great if you want to support multiple languages, if you have internationalization support in your website, if you have customers from different parts of the world, this RTL feature is going to be really awesome for you. Now let's see a very, very basic example of RTL. So basically what you have to do is, I'll just go through the changes that you need to add for the RTL support. So all you need to do is you need to give a language in the HTML. So language here is AR, maybe it might be Armenian. And then you can give the direction right to left. So this will essentially completely change everything, the look and feel of your website. So if I go here, well, as you can see, this is starting from the right and it's going towards the left. But obviously you can go through great examples that Bootstrap provided, like this one. So this is basically your RTL website right to left. The sidebar, as you can see, is on the right-hand side. We have the chart, which is reading from right to left. Again, the table, the same thing. So this is really awesome. I really appreciate this, because this kind of feature is not really supported by a lot of libraries, a lot of components, a lot of websites. This kind of feature really shows that they can go above and beyond to support and improve their utility classes, their support for different languages, for different parts of the world. This is really awesome. Personally, I don't speak any language that is from right to left, but I'm sure the countries that have those languages would be really happy about this feature. And this is all we have to cover for Bootstrap 5. Obviously, there are a lot of breaking changes. For example, the drop-down that used to work before differently is now a little different. It doesn't completely break your website, but you definitely should check the breaking changes before you upgrade to Bootstrap 5 if you have a heavy dependency on Bootstrap 4. If you have been using Bootstrap 3, I would not recommend you to upgrade your website now, because I would recommend you to upgrade it to first Bootstrap 4, so that at least you would be closer to 5. I would not recommend jumping to twice, like 3 to 5 directly. I would definitely not recommend that. They have the migration guide on the Bootstrap. As you can see in the link down below, we have the migration guide, which basically tells you what you should change and what you should not change. And just a final tip for the Bootstrap team. Well, I think if you would be able to use a CLI for Bootstrap, which basically, if you can write something like in Bootstrap update v5, it would be awesome if all the breaking changes are automatically removed, because they're essentially just classes. If I understand right, they can be removed and replaced. Because again, I have been using Angular, and don't give me hate for that, but in Angular we have the awesome CLI, which allows us, whenever I write ng update, it basically allows me to update my whole website, and it changes the imports, it changes, or it actually does changes inside my code to support the new version. It also automatically updates some other packages, it updates my modules, it updates my imports, and what else and whatnot. Sorry. So that would be really awesome, but I know that is difficult. I know that's not easy, but if you have that, people would be very, very quick to upgrade to Bootstrap 5. Because I personally know some companies who have been using Bootstrap 3. They're really afraid to go to Bootstrap 4, and all the work, the awesome work that you guys do can be overlooked if the upgradation requires a lot of time and effort. So that is just a small recommendation from my side. Apart from that, I really love the Bootstrap team and their work. I have been using it in all my projects. Whenever I use Angular, React, or vanilla JavaScript and HTML, I always prefer using Bootstrap 5. So thumbs up to them. Thumbs up to this video. Hit the like button if you like anything new. If you learned anything new actually today, I would be really glad. Hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. Our analytics show us that 93% of the people are not subscribed. So what the hell are you doing with your life? Well, hit the subscribe button. And until next time, bye-bye.